It was supposed to be an ordinary post-game interview, the kind that happens hundreds of times during a Major League Baseball season. But on that warm October evening, everything changed when Shohei Ohtani walked into the interview room with an expression that was noticeably different from his usual calm and collected demeanor. Something about him, his silence, his tone, his slight hesitation, made everyone in the room sit up a little straighter. Among them was a young, beautiful sports reporter who had been following Ohtani's journey closely all season. What she saw that night was something she couldn't forget. As Ohtani sat down, the cameras started rolling, and flashes from photographers filled the air. The atmosphere was professional, yet somehow tense. He offered his usual polite smile, but it faded quickly as the questions began. His answers were shorter than usual, his gaze distant, and his voice softer. For someone known for his poise and humility, this shift in energy was striking. The reporter, seated in the front row, couldn't take her eyes off him. She sensed something unspoken, something raw. Throughout the season, Ohtani had been under immense pressure, balancing the expectations of being the face of the Dodgers, the global spotlight, and his personal ambitions. Yet, he rarely showed any cracks. That night, however, was different. The questions about his recent performance seemed to touch a nerve. Instead of the cheerful tone fans had come to adore, Ohtani's responses were laced with exhaustion. The room fell into an uncomfortable silence more than once, as if everyone felt the same tension but didn't dare to comment on it. After the press conference ended, the reporter noticed Ohtani linger for a brief moment, as though debating whether to say something more. Then, almost suddenly, he stood, gave a slight bow to the media, and walked out without another word. His body language spoke volumes, something was weighing on him. The reporter, who had prepared a few light-hearted follow-up questions, couldn't bring herself to ask them. Instead, she watched as Ohtani disappeared down the hallway, his shoulders slightly slumped. Later that night, she opened her social media account and wrote a simple post, "What a tough day." Within minutes, the message exploded with reactions. Fans speculated what had happened during the interview, others wondered if Ohtani had been injured, and some even suggested there might be something personal going on behind the scenes. The reporter hadn't named anyone, but everyone knew who she was referring to. The next morning, sports outlets across Japan and the US began reporting on Ohtani's sudden behavior. Analysts debated whether fatigue, frustration, or something deeper was behind his demeanor. Some pointed to the long season, while others mentioned the mounting media scrutiny he faced daily. But for those who had been in that room, it wasn't just about stress, it was about humanity. Ohtani, for once, wasn't the flawless superstar. He was simply a man caught between his dreams and the relentless spotlight. The reporter's post continued to gain traction. People began sharing clips from the press conference, zooming in on Ohtani's expressions, trying to decode every glance and movement. Some claimed he was upset about a teammate's comment. Others thought he was disappointed in himself. The truth, however, remained elusive. Ohtani himself didn't address the moment publicly. Days later, the reporter was asked during a radio appearance about her viral post. She hesitated before answering. "He looked human," she finally said. "Not in a bad way. Just tired. Like someone who gives everything every single day and sometimes runs out of strength." Her words resonated deeply with listeners. Fans began to see Ohtani in a new light, not just as a baseball phenomenon, but as someone enduring the same emotional highs and lows as anyone else. Behind the scenes, Ohtani continued to train, driven by his quiet determination. Teammates noticed his focus but also his solitude. He spent longer hours in the batting cage, rarely speaking, always pushing himself. Even during casual moments in the dugout, there was a certain stillness about him. The media's obsession with his tough day only intensified, but Ohtani stayed silent, letting his actions on the field speak for him. When he finally returned to the mound a week later, something about him seemed renewed. His fastball blazed through the strike zone, his swing had regained its precision, and the crowd's roar felt louder than ever. The same reporter who had posted that emotional message was again in attendance, camera in hand. This time, when Ohtani struck out the final batter and smiled faintly toward the stands, she couldn't help but smile back. After the game, she approached him cautiously. "You looked different out there today," she said softly. Ohtani paused for a moment, then replied in English, "Some days are hard. But that's baseball. That's life." It was a simple response, but one that carried an entire story within it. That short exchange never made it into the official interview transcripts, but the reporter carried it with her. Later, she wrote another post, resilience isn't loud. Sometimes, it just looks like getting back up quietly. Her followers flooded the comments with messages of support for Ohtani, praising his humility and mental strength. What many didn't realize was how much that single moment had humanized one of the most extraordinary athletes in modern sports. For years, Ohtani had been seen as superhuman, a player who could pitch and hit at elite levels, a man who seemed incapable of faltering. But this incident reminded everyone that even the strongest among us have days when the weight of expectations feels too heavy. In the following weeks, fans began to talk less about statistics and more about his character. The tough day post became symbolic, a reminder of vulnerability behind greatness. Young athletes started quoting it, saying they too had tough days. Sports psychologists even referenced Ohtani's composure as an example of emotional resilience under pressure. The reporter, meanwhile, became unexpectedly popular. Her empathy toward Ohtani struck a chord with fans worldwide. In interviews, she was often asked what she truly thought happened that night. Her answer never changed: "I think he just needed a moment to be human." For Ohtani, that period marked a quiet transformation. His on-field performance remained stellar, but his demeanor off the field became slightly more open. He began acknowledging reporters by name, smiling a little more often, and occasionally joking with teammates during practice. It wasn't a dramatic change, but it was enough for those who paid attention to notice. As the postseason advanced, Ohtani delivered several defining performances that silenced any doubts about his mindset. His ability to rise above adversity impressed not only fans but also critics who had once questioned his emotional endurance. The same reporter covered many of those games, each time observing how he handled both triumph and disappointment with quiet grace. In one particularly moving moment after a big win, Ohtani was asked about the pressures of fame. He paused, looked directly into the camera, and said, "Pressure means people believe in you. I'm grateful for that." It was a short sentence, but the sincerity in his tone made headlines across both sides of the Pacific. Social media once again lit up, this time with positive energy. The earlier, tough day narrative had evolved into one of perseverance and gratitude. The reporter posted only 3 words in response: "He found peace." Her followers instantly knew who she meant. By the end of the season, the moment that began with a single post had grown into a full emotional arc, a story not about scandal or controversy, but about authenticity. Ohtani's so-called sudden behavior turned out to be a turning point, a rare glimpse behind the curtain of a man who carried the hopes of millions on his shoulders. When asked in a later interview if he knew about the viral post, Ohtani chuckled lightly. "I heard," he said. "It was a tough day indeed. But sometimes you need those days to remember why you love what you do." That humility endeared him even more to fans. The moment that once sparked concern now became a symbol of strength. The beautiful reporter who had unintentionally started it all continued to cover his games, always maintaining a quiet respect for the balance between admiration and professionalism. Months later, when Ohtani received a major award for his outstanding season, she was in the front row again. As he thanked his teammates, family, and fans, their eyes met briefly. He gave a small, knowing nod, an unspoken acknowledgement of that night and everything it represented. After the ceremony, she didn't post anything for hours. When she finally did, it was simple: "Every tough day has a purpose." The post went viral again, reminding everyone how one human moment could inspire millions. The world often sees athletes as untouchable, existing in a realm of glory and perfection. But that night, Ohtani showed that even heroes have heavy hearts sometimes, and that vulnerability, far from diminishing greatness, actually deepens it. His sudden behavior wasn't a breakdown, it was a breakthrough. In the end, what captivated the reporter wasn't his fame or his performance, it was his quiet honesty. And what captivated the world was the realization that strength doesn't always roar, sometimes, it whispers through a weary smile, reminding us all that being human is not a weakness, but a gift.